Our civilization is in crisis. A tragedy is before us. One that afflicts half of our population. Men die earlier than women. After much research, we have now discovered why.
Hello everybody, how are we doing today? Wow, okay, that was an organized response, wasn't it? Okie dokie. Right, well, welcome to part 3, those that have been for the last 2, and welcome to part 1 for those that haven't. You're going to be really confused, but that's okay. Here's the thing, I love being a bloke. Do you know that? There's something, I'm sorry ladies, I've got all the respect in the world for you, but it's way more fun being a bloke because we're idiots and we're okay with that. You know, we're idiots and you're okay with that, except when you're not, but you know, that's a whole other thing. But, right, here's the thing, I love that as a man, I am just drenched in unearned self-belief. That I can look at a stupid thing and say, yeah, why not? Like, I bet every man in this room, every single one, looked at least one of those things and thought, oh, that looks like fun, right? And every woman in the room knows that your man looked at that and thought, that looks like fun. We all know it, right? Because men are awesome. Women are also awesome, but in this regard, men can be, unfortunately, a little bit too much, because men are the least likely to ever admit that I can't succeed at everything. Oh boy, if there's one thing that a man doesn't want to admit to, it's I can't. And yet it's a real shame, because that one sentence, as we've been saying, sets you free from the pressure to be perfect. And it's really good to know that even if you can't do absolutely everything, there's still a way forward. And it's good to be able to say that even though, no, I can't do everything, say, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Say, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Say these words with me, yes, I can believe. Which is awesome, but sometimes you can believe yourself into a lot of trouble. Am I right? Men more than women, just saying, okay, yeah, we can believe ourselves into a whole bunch of trouble. We can go, yes, I can, and really you shouldn't. Right? And it reminds me of that saying, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. And half the men I know, if I said that to them, when they're all upped and they're amped and they're ready to give something to go, if I said, fools rush in where angels fear to tread, you know what they'd say? Yeah, that's because angels are wusses. It's like, have you seen how they're described in the Bible? They've got like 6 pairs of wings and 1,000,000 eyes and 4 heads and flaming swords. Like, they lay waste to entire nations. God can send one to destroy an army of thousands. He isn't called the angel of tickles. He isn't called the angel of telling you off sternly. He's not even the angel of injuring you quite badly. He's the angel of death. And yet some blokes would be like, yeah, but I'm from Dalham. Like, you know. You can't switch it off, can you? It's always there. It's always going to be there. But, oh, good grief. Right, let me translate this, okay? Which is, the fools rush in. The fearless rush in because they're idiots. Aren't you glad you're not fearless? Are you glad you're not fearless? Always? Do you kind of wish that you was sometimes? Because, right, here's the thing, right? We often feel bad for being fearful. And we think we should be fearless. And we should sing songs like about how brave we are and how fearless we are and how God's got everything. Da, 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 da. Yeah, great, okay. But I got some news for you. And we always start with a no, I can't. So I want you to say these words with me. 1, 2, 3. I can't be fearless. I know it's hard for you to admit, especially if you're a man. I know it's okay? Because you wish you could sometimes, right? You wish you could just switch it off, because fear comes at the worst possible moment when you could really do without it. You've got a thing and you need to do, and it's going to be hard enough, and then suddenly you get afraid. It's like, not now, it comes at the worst moments. Don't you wish you just had an off switch? I'm fine with it most of the time, but just leave me alone for a bit. But honestly, if you think about it, you should be glad that you can't. Because we always follow a no, I can't with a yes, I can, because that's not the end of the sentence, right? So everyone say, yes, I can. Yes, say, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Because that is true, this is true. Say it with me, 1, 2, 3. Yes, I can be brave. And here's the thing. There's not just a distinction between those two. They're opposites. You cannot be brave if you're fearless. You're one or the other. Let me break that down a little more, because Sarah's getting it, but I'm not sure about anybody else there. Right? So here's the thing. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. Bravery is overcoming fear. Which means, check my maths on this, but no fear, no bravery. That's it. So can we stop pretending that we need to be fearless, because you're called to be brave? But if you're called to be brave, you're called to overcome fear. So you're called to have fear. You're going to experience it. The valley of death is scary. Even if you're traveling through it, it's scary. David wouldn't have had to say, I will fear no evil, if that was just what everybody was like. Right? It's a thing we need to be determined about. But let me ask you a question. Honestly, is fear a scary giant for you? Be honest. Now, here's the thing, right? Maybe you've experienced this as well as me, that you've got a situation and it's really difficult and it's really hard. Maybe it's something you need to let go of from the past, or something you need to deal with in the future. Maybe it's some exams you've got to do, or it's a job interview or something. It's a big scary thing, and you build yourself up and you're terrified and you're scared, and it seems like it's really horrible, and then you get there and it's like, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it'd be. Oh, well, what was I worried about? Have you said those words? Fear itself is a scary giant. Even if the giant isn't scary, fear is. Right? Sound familiar? Well, let me ask you a question, okay? What are you looking at right now that terrifies you? You need to give it voice. You need to speak it out, not for me or for anyone else, but you need to put a name to this so that you know what it is. Let me go first, okay? And this is all. Say it to the mirror. You don't need to tell anybody here. I've got a giant in my future that terrifies me. It absolutely scares the heck out of me. It's a massive giant that's about this big. And it's sitting inside my wife right now. And my wife, right, here's the thing. I love her to bits. She knows I do, like all day long. There's never any doubt, right? And she knows that I would take a bullet for her, literally, right? I would give anything for my wife, and she knows that. But if I got run over by a car tomorrow, she earns a decent wage, and she's a grown-up. She's got 2 feet and a heartbeat. She can cook. She can do everything. Right, so she'd go on. That's not the same with this thing. This is absolutely dependent on me for life itself. I've never had that responsibility. I don't know if I can handle it. I don't know, because I never have. And it's not just feeding the thing and putting a roof over its head. It's teaching it, and it's everything that it's going to be and everything that it's going to see about itself. And like Freud made a career on telling people you're nuts because of your parents. And we all know in this room we're nuts because of our parents. That's my future. I'm terrified. But at least I know what it is. So now I can start dealing with it. Speak out your giant. Speak its name. What is it you're looking at that terrifies you? Call it out so that we can start sorting it out. What do you reckon? Because let me ask you this. Right, how often has fear of something that you can't handle, the fear that you can't handle it, how often has it stopped you even trying? How often has it held you in place and you've not even bothered, and you will never know if you could have done it? How often has fear, just fear, held you in place to deny you from getting something that you think you deserved. Does it happen to you? Fear's a scary giant, isn't it? So let me ask you, be honest, do you feel bad for feeling scared? Because it's taken a lot from you, and it's held you in place a lot, and fear, when it holds you down, it soon starts inviting grief to the party. It soon starts inviting regret to the party, and before you know it, you're beating yourself up for being afraid, and you feel guilty for being afraid, especially if you're a man, because we're not supposed to be. We're supposed to be tough. We're supposed to be the ones that take a bullet for our wives, like I've just boasted that I would on camera. Oh boy, right. But yeah, we're not supposed to feel bad, but neither are Christians. We sing all the time about how fearless we are, right? When you feel bad, you're like, traitor. Oh, I'm backsliding. Oh, I'm further from God. Oh no, God must be so unhappy with me for being afraid. You can't be fearless. Because just like all of your other emotions, it's designed into you. It's part of who you are. And God did not make a mistake when he designed you that way. Or maybe I need to push in a little bit further because we're so programmed that we shouldn't be afraid and we should be ashamed when we are. So I'm going to remove all the guilt of being scared from you with just one word. And we're going to say it together. One word to remove all the guilt about being afraid. Are you ready?
Yes.
Laura's ready. Are you ready?
Yes.
Good. Right, okay. I want you to say this word on me, okay? With me. Right, okay. Here we go, right? On three, one word to take away all your guilt of being scared ever again. 1, 2, 3. Hematidrosis. Now, who said it first time? Honest? Come on. It just trips off the tongue, doesn't it? Don't worry, Brazilians. None of the English people know what it means either. It's okay. Right. Let me explain this to you. This is a medical term, okay? And I've actually described this in a previous series I did. But what it is, right? You know that you've got a fight or flight response, yeah? When you're feeling a lot of fear, your body will trigger adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream to make it speed up and start whizzing around, taking extra oxygen and energy to all your muscles. And so your muscles tense up for a fight or for running, and your breathing gets quicker because your lungs are working harder and your heart is working harder and your brain is moving faster. You know what it's like. Everything slows down. Right? You've been there? No, it's not slowing down. Your brain is moving faster because it's getting ready to either fight or run. This is what happens. You've got so much blood going all around your system to either fight like you never fought or run like you've never ran. Right? But what can happen if the fear is so acute, if it's so enormous and so great that the blood's rushing around so much and so high pressure, your capillaries can actually rupture and the blood comes out. And it comes out through your skin and it looks like sweat. Does that sound familiar? Oh, now we know what it is. Well, what we know now is that it is it's a recognized, documented medical condition. This is for real. They didn't know about it when they wrote it all those centuries ago, but we know now that this is a real thing that they were describing. Who are we talking about, folks? Jesus. There you go. If you're new in church, anyone asks a question on the stage, the answer is always Jesus, just so you know. There you go. Right. All right, so let's have a look at this. He said this. Well, he said what he's about to say, which we'll read. I'm running ahead. Spoilers. Right, okay. So this is something that happened just before the crucifixion. Yeah? This happened in the Garden of Gethsemane, where it's revealed to Jesus what's going to happen to him. He knew he was going to die. He knew that beforehand. And I love someone, I'm going off script here, but I love that someone said, I wonder what I would do if I knew it was my last day on earth. I would go and party, or I'd borrow money that I can't possibly pay back, drive a Ferrari into a wall or something, whatever. You do all kinds of mad things. Jesus knew, and he washed feet. Yeah. Whew, that's who we're talking about. Yeah. But then it gets revealed to him, the detail of how he's going to die. He really starts soaking this in now, and he's terrified because he's going to get crucified. Not just killed, he's going to get crucified. The form of death that's so painful, the word excruciating was created literally to describe the pain of it. And Jesus grew up a carpenter. He worked with his dad a carpenter. And he would have built all kinds of things, doors and chairs and tables, and very likely crosses. At least the parts for crosses. He would have seen criminals on the roadside. He knew exactly what this was and how painful and excruciating it was. And now he's being confronted with the terror of it. And he's so terrified, he's bleeding through his skin. He's that stressed. And he says, I don't want to do this. Sort of. I mean, he used different words, but that's what he was saying. I would say the same, wouldn't you? I would say exactly the same thing. And he was terrified. And he needed an angel to comfort him. It says the Father sent an angel to minister to him. How terrified would you have to be to find an angel comforting? Have you seen how they're described in Scripture? With a million eyes and a flaming sun? Anyway, how beside yourself would you have to be that you needed an angel to comfort you? Have you ever been there? Because I haven't. Have you been so terrified that you were sweating blood? Because I haven't. And what did he do? Did he walk away? No. Did he just cry? No. What he did, it says, in his anguish, he prayed fervently. Hands up if the harder you panic, the harder you pray. Come on, we all know it, right? The worse things get, the more you pray. As the saying goes, there are no atheists when you've blocked a toilet at someone else's house, right? Doesn't happen. This is Jesus. This is God himself. And he's terrified to the point of needing angels to comfort him, sweating through his skin, blood, and pleading with the Father, can we please not do this? This is Jesus. You still feel bad for feeling scared sometimes? I think we've got all the evidence to know that you shouldn't at all. And yet that terror, worse terror than you or I or anyone you've ever met in your life has ever felt, in the midst of that absolute terror, he speaks, and that's what makes these the bravest words ever spoken. But not my will, but your will be done. If it was easy, it wouldn't be brave. If it was terrifying, now it's brave. Fear is not the absence, bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's the presence of fear with determination that takes you through it. Fear by itself is a barrier, holds you in place and does things it's not supposed to do. But fear with determination is bravery. And in case I haven't drilled it in hard enough so far, fear isn't a sin. Jesus was sinless. He was not fearless. He was brave. But he was only brave because he had fear to overcome. So, say these words with me, people. I can't be brave. It's okay. You're not designed that way. You're not built that way. God gave it you for a reason, which we will discuss. But because you can't be fearless, say this with me. Yes, I can be brave. Can you? Say it like you mean it. Yes, I can be brave. Think about whatever that is that you're facing, that you need to let go of from the past or get over from the future. Speak to that thing. Say it with me. Yes, I can be brave. No fear, no bravery. The only question is, does your fear control you or does it work for you? That's the only question here. You see, if fear is controlling you, it's a killer giant. And you know it is, because it's killed you and it's pushed you back and pushed you down when the thing wasn't even that scary. And when the thing genuinely is that scary, it just amplifies it and makes it worse. And then, like I say, it invites grief to the party. It invites remorse to the party. Fear without control is a killer giant, and nothing will trap you in I can't like your fear. There is not one other thing that can make you stop and believe you can't like fear, if it's uncontrolled. But You make your fear work for you, it's a giant killer. It can take things down because it can prepare you and make you wiser and better and stronger. And that giant doesn't stand a chance. You want me to prove it? Say, yes, John. Yes. This side of the room's okay. This side, come on. I thought Brazilians were loud. You're just really quiet, guys. Come on. I won the front row and I'm picking on the second row. I need to do better at this, don't I? Right, okay. All right, so we're going to talk about the story that takes 60 seconds to read, but for some reason we've been looking at it for 3 weeks and we're not finished yet. So anyway, let's talk about the story of David and yes, and there he is. There's the big sucker right there. And he's facing up against Conor McGregor because when I first made these slides, he was still relevant somehow. But anyway, we'll move on. So there's average-looking guy, or no, average-sized guy. We won't talk about the first bit there. Right, but he's just about big enough to see eye to belly button. That's all he's got, right? And this giant, and by the way, Goliath at actual size, if he stood on the platform right now, that's roughly where his head would be. Just so you know, that's how big we're talking about. And a guy that big, full of armor, full of expertise, because as it said, he wasn't just a giant, he was a warrior from his youth. He's an expert fighter. And he stood there and he's calling them out and he's calling them names and he's threatening them and saying what he's going to do to them, and he is absolutely terrifying them. And if you were stood in front of that and you weren't terrified, you're not brave, you're stupid. I'm not here to sell denial, okay? Fearlessness is the absence of understanding of what you should be afraid of. I'd be afraid of that, would you? Well, the Israelites certainly were. They were terrified, and it says they were terrified and dismayed. So the terror had already started inviting other emotions to the party. Terrified and afraid, as I would be, and he's mocking them. Like your giant mocks you and convinces you how small you are and how you can't do it and why even try, right? And so they're feeling their fear, the God-given, God-designed fear. And I'm selling it like it's a good thing. It was holding them there on the hill. David comes along, this little runt, who was so small, the king's armor wouldn't even fit him, although the king was a giant himself. I mean, not a giant, but he was a big fella. He was bigger than me. But David was too small to even to be considered to be put into the army. He was nobody. He was a delivery boy. He was the junior Uber Eats guy. That was it. He was delivering food. And he comes along, and the same giant that's got all of these Israelite soldiers knocking, hiding behind the shield, he hears the same words. And what does he say? We looked at it last week. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he defies the armies of the living God? This sounds like a cocky fella, doesn't it? And is there anything going to get you into more trouble than an overly cocky fella, right? David, he belongs in that video we showed at the start right there, right? He's like, yeah, I'm going to do this, hold my beer, right? He comes walking in there, and he even says, how much do I get if I kill him, right? But he's not just cocky, he's not just sure of himself, he's angry. And like we said last week, you and I, we've both angered ourselves into a stupid situation many a time, where they get your anger going and you're like, oh, you can't say that about my mum. And you go fee, fi, fo, fumming in there, and you trample over everybody, and you hurt all the people you love, and you make a mess. And before you realize that you really should have stopped 10 minutes ago, you're really embarrassed. You're like, I don't know how to stop myself. You've all done it. We've all done it. We all know it's okay. So why didn't David? Why didn't he, motivated by his anger, which is what overrode his fear to get him into action, why didn't he get carried away with it like you do and I do all the time? One word, fear. That's why he didn't go running down that mountain. He got emotional, just like the Israelites. But his emotions worked for him. They didn't control him. And we talked about this just really briefly last week, if you remember. We said, I can't stop my emotions. Say, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Say, yes, I can. Yes, I Say it with me, folks. Yes, I can make friends with them. You can be best friends with your emotions. If you can get them on side, they will make you wiser. They will make you stronger. They will motivate you to do things that common sense says don't, and they will heal you from your past hurts. If you let them do the job that they are designed and given you by God to do. You can make friends with them. And we talked last week about how to do that. You've got to be the one in control. And it's just two simple questions. What is this emotion for? Every one of your emotions has a specific job to do. It's usually fleeting. It lasts for seconds, maybe minutes, and then it's over. Put it back in the box. So whenever you're feeling emotional, whenever your feelings are pushing you around, you ask the question, what are you here for? This feeling, what are you doing right now? And if it's not doing something productive, put it away, because it's the wrong feeling and it's not doing a positive job for you. You're the one in control. What is this feeling doing? What is this emotion for? And then everything else, everything that's not helpful and beneficial and helping you get past that giant, everything else is number two. It's what it's not for. And we looked at a few examples last week, if you remember. We said anger moves you. Can't heal you. Can't do it. Anger will get you off the couch and into action like nothing else. It'll get you off the couch and into the game. It moved David into a battle that no one else was willing to fight. But it can't heal you. And we said last week, what is it called when you try to heal through anger? What was it? 1, 2, 3. 3 people were here and 2 of them were paying attention. Wonderful. Revenge. You try to heal through anger, it's just revenge. And if you remember, only one of 3 outcomes. Either it will make no difference at all, or it will make way too much difference and you'll make a mess of everything and not fix the situation. Or worst of all, it will achieve everything you wanted. It will make that person suffer. It will make them feel bad and feel sorry for ever having hurt you. And it will not make you one bit happier. And so all that anger that's just run away with you has got nowhere else to go. You're not satisfied. It's not done a job, but you've let it off the leash, so it's too late. So you just hide it at the back of your head. And like I say, it just sits down, puts a towel over its head and renames itself bitterness. That's it. You let anger try to heal you and it can't. Whew! There you go. Yep. Remorse. Oh, none of us like feeling remorse, do we? I mean, at least there's something like cathartic about anger. It feels good. Remorse never feels good. It feels horrible. But without remorse, you can't heal. Remorse is a great teacher. Very good. Nothing in life will teach you, I shouldn't have done that, like your remorse. In fact, that's its one and only job. So the second you reach the conclusion, I shouldn't have done that, it's done its job, put it away. Because if you leave it out there, it's going to start punishing you. It's going to start reminding you of what you did and how stupid it was and all the things you lacked that made you do that. So no, don't give it that chance. Grief, good outlet. You will never heal without grief. So let yourself grieve for what has gone. Give it some time. Take a moment and grieve. It's okay. But then the moment comes. Then the funeral happens. Time to stop grieving. It's time to start remembering the good. Time to move on now. Love is a great motivator, but it's a poor judge. I said kindness on the slide last week. I'm flipping them around on purpose because we're kind of talking about the same thing. But last week I talked about people taking advantage of your generosity, but the same exact thing works with love. Let me prove this to you. Have you ever loved someone genuinely and you were motivated by love and you genuinely did love them and they were a genuinely terrible choice? Yeah. Love is a great motivator. We should always be motivated by love. But when it starts making the decisions, you're making them with one eye open. You're blinding yourself to all kinds of other things. So, like anger, you let it get you off the couch and push you into action. But then hang on. I absolutely love my wife's chocolate brownies, but sooner or later I have to say, not today. I've had 37. And then fear. Well, the man of the moment. It's the birthday boy. Fear is a good protector. The only reason you've never been run over by a bus is because of fear. The only thing that's kept you alive and safe this long is your fear. That's its job. Its job is to say, be careful. Its job is to say, hang on a minute. Its job is to say, think about that. But that's it. You let it hang around too long and it'll go from being a protector to a hiding place. And here's the thing, it's a brilliant hiding place. It will hide you forever. It likes your company. So it will just gather you in. Come on in, there you go. I'm hosting a party for you. Just come and sit under the table. I'll get some cotton wool to wrap you up in. Right, okay? And I need a helping hand here. Grief, do you want to come over for a minute? Yeah, we're just going to shove that there. And we need a birthday cake, don't we? Remorse, are you over there? Yeah, come on in, come on in. Let's grab some hate in there because they're going to start hating themselves in a minute. Right, yeah. Fear is a great party host. It will invite everyone to the party once it's got you hiding. Do not let it be a hiding place because it doesn't want to let you go then. It's that simple. Like all the others, fear has got a job, so restrict it to its job. Otherwise, it will stick around and do things that it's not supposed to do. The Israelites hadn't learned that lesson, so they were using their fear as a hiding place. Whereas David, he used it to push him into action. The Israelites were hiding on the hill, camping out on the hill, looking out, oh, he's still there, going back. Looking out, oh, he's still massive, going back. Looking out, oh, he's still insulting us, going back. And I asked in week 1, who's really holding you on that hill that you're stuck on right now? That problem that you keep going back and, oh, it's still there. That issue that you don't want to get past because it's scary to even think about, and you keep going back and revisiting it, and it's still hard, and you come back, and it's still terrible. Who's holding you on that hill? Well, we said it's going to be you. It's no one else. But specifically, it's your fear. So move past being like the Israelites and be like David. Use it as a protector. He goes on to say, once it's decided he's going into battle, it says, he chose 5 smooth stones from the stream. Why did he do that? You know why. The giant didn't. Woo-hoo. He has no idea what's coming. And it says he put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag and with his sling in his hand approached the Philistine. Didn't run at the Philistine. Didn't go charging down the mountain at the Philistine. I don't know, this is just me reading into this, but the word approached sounds a little bit more cautious than who do you think you are, right? But here's the thing. His anger had overridden his fear and pushed him into action. But before he ran headlong in and killed himself, his fear overrode his anger and made him stop to be wise. And this is why David versus Goliath was an unfair fight for Goliath. He never stood a chance. You know why? Because David was huge. Nope, we've already done that one. Because David was strong. Nope, not at all. Because David was so skillful with a sword. Nope. Because David had been training with Bruce Lee. Oh, no, not at all. Not even a little bit. Goliath never stood the slightest chance because David was so scared. He was offered swords and spears and all the weapons of war that armies use. He was offered all of them and he turned them down. He didn't go in with any of them. Not because he was like, "Puh, I don't need your peasant scummy weapons. I have my magic sling." No, he didn't do that. We said in week 1, I can't succeed at everything. He knew what he could not succeed at. He knew his limitations, and he was okay with that. He still went into battle, knowing that he couldn't win a sword fight. He couldn't win a spear fight. He couldn't win a wrestling match. He couldn't win a thumb wrestle. He was never going to win anything getting close to this giant, and he knew that. He didn't even bother taking the weapons in. If I was going to face the giant, I'd want a sword to at least defend myself while I'm running away. Wouldn't you? But he didn't. He didn't go for any of that. Anything that brings him up close to the giant, he has no chance and he's going to die, and he knows that. You know who told him that? His fear. And so he used a slingshot, aka a weapon of fear. This is what you use when you're too scared to go anywhere near the enemy. This is what you use when you are 100% certain that guy will kill me and there's nothing I can do about it. The fact that he was using a slingshot, so he didn't need to get where his enemy was, this is him stopping to be wise. And let me just put this into perspective for you folks, okay? So here we've got urban church. So those watching on the live stream, this is what it looks like, okay? Right, so here's the church, and here's Goliath. This is roughly to scale. Are you with me so far? So here he is. He's a big fella, and he's about up to where those windows are right there, okay? So that's how big he is. Now then, this guy, how tall was he? 9'9", yes. Oh, I like it when people listen. This is wonderful. Everyone says he's 9 foot. No, he was 9'9", right? So his arm would be about 5 foot. His arm plus sword would be about 10 foot, and his arm plus spear is about 15 foot. So this is the man's kill radius. You get closer than that, you are going to die. I've measured it out roughly, and if he stood all the way back here, then it's in the region of about there, you're going to die. With me so far? Right, so how close would you get to that guy thinking, I can hit him with a stone and it'll kill him? That's how far he can kill you. How close you going to get? What do you reckon? Well, out the back, yeah? Who else is like, I would go from out the back, I would like the other side, yeah? Right, okay, so how about this? Let's have a look on here. So if David was stood, say, here, that's out the back, you reckon he's safe there, yeah? So if he can hit Goliath from there, Goliath can't hit him, so he's going to win, right? What do you reckon? What if he was stood there? Could you hit him? Could you hit a giant target from there with a slingshot? What do you reckon? With enough force to be able to kill him. What do you think? So Dave's got a bit of a quandary, hasn't he? How do I get close enough to hit him with this weapon that I've been using to fight off lions and tigers and bears? Oh my. How do I get close enough to do that? Not so close that I'm going to kill him. How close could David get? We know how close he could get without killing him. About 15 feet. Without being killed, about 15 feet.
Twice that range.
Sorry?
Twice that range.
Twice that range. So you reckon about there, about 30 feet away, yeah? Okay, right. So that's a good place to get to. So if he can get him from there, David wins, right? Now the fight is tipping in David's favor. Well, archaeologists have looked into this kind of thing, and historians have looked at this, and they've figured out that the Roman army could use a slingshot. The soldiers used slingshots, and they could hit a target from 600 feet away. 20 times Goliath's reach. But that was the Romans, and these were professional soldiers, like 500 years later, who had gone around the ancient world, and every time they come across another enemy, they'd pick up their weapons and learn how to use them and improve themselves. So this is a really highly developed military machine, and they can hit things from 600 feet away. So what about the Israelites, all the way back then, like 700 BC? Well, archaeologists have looked into that, and the ancient world knew about Israelites. Their soldiers were renowned for being able to hit a target the size of an ear of corn with a slingshot from a quarter of a mile away. This was standard in the Israelite army. That's how good they were. And to put that into perspective, that's a little further than out in the cafe. It's actually out onto the pavement, across the field, and across the railway tracks on the other side. That's where David could stand and kill you from there. Goliath didn't stand the slightest chance. You know why? Because David, the great warrior, saw how big he was and said, I'm staying over here, mate. And he could, because he used a weapon of fear. This fight was only going to end one way. If he'd have picked up a sword and been all fearless and gone running in there, it would have ended a very different way. But because David's anger pushed him into action, but then his fear said, hang on, how do we do this and not die? Which is its job? He went in motivated and wise. Wouldn't you like to face all of your problems with that combination? Drive and wisdom. Well, then anger is a good thing, and so's fear. Now, if he'd have fallen to that fear and said, oh, right, how do I do this and not die? I don't know. Well, I could use a slingshot, but maybe he's got a mate who's standing over the thing. He could have used his fear and let it run away with him and ended up right in the barracks with all the others shaking. But he didn't. I guarantee his fear wasn't just telling him, use a slingshot, you'll live. It was saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. He had to listen to his fear and then override it. And that's what made him brave. Fearlessness is for the stupid. It's for people who don't understand the danger. They don't give it the respect that it deserves. They don't listen to the voice in their head, and they go charging headlong into a stupid situation. Don't be fearless, and stop thinking that it's a good thing. Stop thinking that it's romantic and ideal and it's for heroes. It's not. It's for idiots. Uncontrolled fear holds you where you are, just like it did with the Israelites. You let it off the leash, it will put you in a box, and it will keep you there, and it will stop you doing anything. But controlled fear pushes you into wisdom. It forces you to think, but what if? So that you can say, well, if what if, then I will. If that happens, I can do this. This is how I can do it without losing my leg. This is how I can do it and still, my wife will talk to me, right? It makes you stop and think and consider that's its job. The same voice that says, there's a bus coming, is the same voice that says, he can fire you. It's the same voice. You don't stand on the pavement never crossing the road because there might be another bus, right? Let it do its job, control it, and listen, and be pushed into wisdom. David's got a lot to teach us, hasn't he? Wow. I wouldn't want to be fearless. So it's a very good job that I can't be fearless. Neither can you, and stop beating yourself up for not being fearless. But that's not the end of the sentence, is it? That's not the end of the sentence, is it? No, come on, say it with me, everybody. Yes, I can. Say, yes, I can. Say, yes, I can be brave. You can. Make sure you tell yourself. Make sure when you're afraid, you tell yourself, I can still be brave, and if I wasn't afraid right now, I couldn't, because fear will tell you that you can't. You can be brave if you have fear. I wouldn't want to be stupid, so I don't want to be fearless. I want to be brave, and that means I need to face my fears, but that means I need to listen to them. So what are you facing right now? I told you mine. What are you facing that terrifies you? What are you facing that you don't want to think about that thing from the past because it still hurts, and if you think about it and deal with it, that pain is going to be with you forever? What's the thing that in your future and you think, I just can't forgive myself and I don't know how I'm going to face that person again? Who's that person who you know you need to ask their forgiveness, but oh boy, you don't want to? Who's the person you need to make peace with? Who's the person you need to forgive? Oh, that's not what you want to do, right? What's your fear? What's your giant that's holding you in place? Give it a name and speak to it and say, I can't be fearless. You might be afraid. But yes, I can be brave. But I'm going to ask you a question. You can be brave. I can be brave. But can you be brave enough to face the truly impossible? Not the difficult, not the stuff where a bit of wisdom and a bit of motivation will get you through it. Not the stuff where, it wasn't nearly as scary as I thought. No, the stuff that really is. Can you be brave enough to face that? Because so far, everything we've talked about is how to deal with the stuff that can be dealt with somehow. What about the stuff that can't? Because Jesus couldn't avoid the cross. He asked, can we do this another way? And the answer was no. Jesus had no way forward but to get on and die on that cross. And he called you and I to pick up our cross daily and follow him. I've given you a lot of good news, but the bad news is some stuff you can't avoid. Some stuff you can't outsmart. You can't get around it. Sometimes, like Jesus, you've just got to face the thing that is going to be every bit as terrible as you thought it would be. Can you be brave enough to face that? Real victory isn't just in being able to deal with the stuff that you thought you couldn't, but you figured out how to. Real victory, which you and I are called to live in, that's learning how to deal with anything, even the genuinely, absolutely, terrifyingly, horrifically impossible. Freedom is being able to deal with even that. Freedom is being able to say, yes, I can overcome anything, no limits. And we're going to talk about how you can do that when we finish this series next week. And I really hope you're going to join us for that. I hope you found this helpful and useful so far. I hope that this has helped you to deal with issues in your life. And I really, really hope that you're going to take this and you're going to spread some light to someone else, because there's a lot of people out there that are hurting, who are struggling with things, and you know things now that can help them. Freely you received. So go freely give. Let's pray.